This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to the South Today. I'm Daryl Baser. Things are changing for New Zealand as this global pandemic continues to spread, and the South Today isn't immune to the issues facing the nation as we all band together to stop the spread of COVID-19. We at Allied Press thank you for your viewership and understanding at this time as New Zealand joins the rest of the world in doing everything possible to reduce the impacts of the virus. At this afternoon's media announcement, Education Minister Chris Hipkins outlined what being at Level 3 will mean for the education sector.
Under Alert Level 3, most children and young people will be continuing distance learning. Early learning centres in schools will be physically open for students up to year 10 for the families that need that. But children who can stay home should stay home. At-risk students and staff, including those who are over the age of 70, should also stay home, and they will be supported to do so. Residential and special schools will not reopen in the early stages of Alert Level 3 for children to physically attend. They may reopen later during Alert Level 3 if public health measures can be managed, and we are working through that at the moment. In the meantime, teachers and staff will continue to support these students whilst they remain at home. Things like the intensive wraparound service and OARS specialists continue to work with those students whilst they are at home. Education for students in years 11 and to 13 will continue remotely. For tertiary education, moving to Alert Level 3 means remote learning will continue, but where that's not possible, some facilities may reopen with strict physical distancing rules in place. Students in hostels, halls of residence, or self-contained flats can stay there again with strict rules. But if students went home to join their family bubble, they must stay home. They cannot return to student accommodation whilst we are at Alert Level 3.
And stay tuned to Channel 39 to see today's full announcement. In response to the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, New Zealand is set to move from Level 4 to a Level 3 alert level. ODT Head of Video News Tim Miller caught up with Dunedin's Mayor Aaron Hawkins today to see what the changes will mean for the city.
Following yesterday's announcement by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern about the transition from Level 4 to Level 3, I talked to Mayor Aaron Hawkins about what we can expect in Dunedin and when we can see Council getting back to its business. Welcome, Mayor Hawkins.
Kia ora, Tim.
So following the government's announcement yesterday with a bit of a timeline on when we might see things return to a bit of normalcy, when can we expect Council to get back to its business, collecting, recycling, swimming pools opening, that sort of thing?
So at the moment we're doing a piece of work this week to try and figure out which of Council's services can resume under a Level 3 scenario. Obviously that won't include public facilities, so swimming pools, museums, galleries, libraries, those will all remain closed under Level 3, which we'll see for at least 2 weeks from next Tuesday. We are looking at trying to get our recycling collection back underway, particularly glass recycling, from next week, but that will be worked through this week and we'll be able to confirm by Friday where that sits for next week.
And in terms of the city getting back to a bit of normalcy, was there anything in the government's announcement about what's happening that concerned you or that you'd like to see more of, going forward for the city to get kind of return back to a little bit of normalcy? Yeah,
well, what we'll see under Level 3 is an increased amount of business activity, economic activity, without seeing an increase in social activity. And the Prime Minister's been quite clear about that. It's been called Level 4 with takeaways for a reason, Level 3, and it won't really be until we get to Level 2 that something more resembling normal, if you like, will return to the city and around the country. But what I think the announcement yesterday gave us was a clear sense of direction as to how we might get to that point. If we take the next 3 weeks as seriously as we have the previous 4, then hopefully, we'll be in a level two scenario, which will allow not just business to reopen, but also schools to reopen and people to be able to reconnect with their families and friends, because social isolation, as this goes on, is as serious a threat to our well-being as limitations on business and trading.
And earlier this week, there were a couple of announcements, one from Dunedin Venues and the other one from Dunedin Railways about job losses. Do you think there's going to be more of that kind of thing for companies or organisations that are connected to the council, that it's still going to be hard to continue in the role they are at the moment with these restrictions on?
Well, the good news obviously is that we've heard that under level 3, work can resume in forestry as a sector, which is helpful for the city forests business. But certainly, the events sector have been one of the earliest hit by these restrictions, and will probably be one of the last to recover. When your entire business is built on large gatherings of people, and by default those cannot happen, then that is particularly challenging, and we've seen that through what's happening at DVML. Similarly, the Dunedin Railway situation, and I would like to thank the staff and the volunteers actually over the last decades who have built that into a world-class and iconic Dunedin visitor attraction. But that's the key point, is that it's a visitor attraction, and we currently don't have any of those, and we don't know when they might return and in what number. The recommendation that came to council based purely on a commercial footing was to close the business indefinitely. Council took a different view and have decided to mothball the business to allow us some time to look at those options more fully about what we might do with the railway company, and be able to make those decisions at a time when we have a clearer picture of our economic recovery, the future of tourism, the appetite of the government of the day to invest in rail and rail infrastructure, rather than make a decision at the moment that we wouldn't be able to walk ourselves back from. We've managed to get to the point where all options remain on the table in the long term, acknowledging that sadly in the short term that is something that is going to affect a number of staff at Dunedin Railways. But council were also clear that we wanted our holdings company to look to redeploy as many of those affected staff across the group as they can, and also to work with Kiwi Rail. Of course, the revitalisation of hillside workshops is potentially an option for our technical staff at the railway company to find other gainful employment. And we'll see in the coming months where government see the hillside operation fitting in their infrastructure-led recovery plan.
And on tourism, is the council through Enterprise Dunedin looking at ways of possibly attracting more, local tourists to the city, that sort of thing? Obviously, international travel is going to be a long way off. Is there anything the council's doing at the moment in terms of that?
Absolutely. So in the early days of the COVID-19 response, when it was already starting to hit international arrivals, we were doing a significant piece of work looking at exactly that. How do you encourage more domestic tourists to come and visit in an environment where fewer international visitors are likely? And as you say, it could be 12, 18 months before the borders are reopened to people who aren't citizens or residents of this country. Unfortunately, things moved so quickly at that point that we were unable to use that. It became redundant when people are under strict orders to not leave their neighbourhood, let alone their region. But that stuff will continue to work away in the background so that we're ready to go when people are able to move more freely around the country to attract those people who otherwise would have gone away overseas, perhaps for holidays, and will be looking for something closer to home that doesn't in quarantine for 14 days upon their return.
And earlier this week there was a story in the ODT about a $17 million film studio. What's the thinking behind that?
So the film studio project is something that has been another thing that's been working away in the background as part of our economic development work. The call from the Crown Infrastructure Partners for projects was looking for things that were ready to go within the next 6 months, effectively within this calendar year, and that would also, where possible, stimulate our local job prospects and local economies on the way through. And so this is a project that potentially could serve as a focal point for not just Dunedin's economic recovery, but a wider regional recovery as the only studio of its kind in this part of the world. So we put up all of our projects for consideration. There was no prioritisation given to those by council, and Mark Binns and his team at Crown Infrastructure Partners are working their way through those, and we'll find out where that gets to. There's currently no council funding tagged to doing that work, so if the money doesn't materialise from government, that would be a decision probably through our next long-term plan process, whether that was something that we saw as a priority and that we wanted to fund ourselves. So of the roughly $300 million worth of projects that were put up, 200 million of that is the pitches for that to be government funded. A significant chunk of them already had council budgets attached to them. The film studio project isn't one of those.
And a lot of people would have got their rates bills in the mail this week, and this time it came with a little message from the council about why these were still being sent out. Do you want to explain a little bit about that message and why the council took that step to send that message out?
Yeah, we appreciate that for people who pay their rates on a quarterly basis. This isn't an ideal time for a lot of people to be receiving that. People are under a significant amount of pressure in a number of sectors of our community right now. We need people to keep paying them so that we can maintain our essential services through this period and put ourselves in as strong a position as possible to recover from this. But we want people to know that pay what you can and get in touch with us, and we can organise a way for you to pay that off over time if you don't have the money to be able to stump up now. And where we have an agreed plan in place with people, we don't charge penalties or fees for late repayments. That's our standard practice, but we acknowledge that there would be an increased demand for that service, and so felt that it would be useful to let people know when we sent out the rates demands that if people can get in touch with us, and there's a confidential form on council's website, dunedin.govt.nz, fill that in. Someone will get in touch with you in the next week or two and organise something that works for you, but we won't penalise people for being in that position. And
almost 4 weeks into the lockdown, have you taken up any new hobbies, learned any new skills over the past 27 days?
It certainly reiterated the value in not choosing education as a career path. I come from a long line of teachers, and if teachers don't come out of this whole situation with a pay rise, I'll eat my hat. So a lot of homeschool related activity. Resuscitated my failing jogging hobbies, which has been good. But no, I haven't learned another language or taught myself how to juggle or become a viral TikTok star in the interim, unfortunately.
And any advice for people as we prepare to go into level 3, then level 2 in a couple of weeks? Do you have any advice for people?
I think it's important that we take the next 3 weeks as seriously as we have the last 4. This isn't licensed to cut loose when we get to level 3. It's a waiting room to get to level 2. But just want to remind people that some days are going to be harder than others. That it's okay to not be as productive as you think you might otherwise be, and just to be kind on yourselves, because this has been a significant challenge for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to buckle down for the next few weeks and make sure that we don't lose the ground that we've made.
Well, thank you for your time today, Mayor Hawkins, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Tim.
Firefighters were busy clearing water from properties and roads in the Ravensbourne and St Leonards area over the weekend. The flooding occurred after heavy rain fell across Dunedin on Saturday.
Storm water ran across State Highway 88 at the intersection with Moa Street in the suburb of St Leonards just after 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. A fire appliance and crew from Ravensbourne Fire Station had already been called out to nearby Manapuri Street an hour earlier to successfully prevent an overflowing stream from inundating several properties. Local resident Stephen Harwood says it's not the first time floodwaters have erupted on his property.
The pipe for the creek has come up through my property going across the road. Second time, so hopefully they'll do something.
According to Met Service, about 9 millimetres of rain fell in the city between noon and 2 p.m. on Saturday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Damage to the seawall at St Clair Beach is urgently being repaired by the Dunedin City Council after large swells battered the beach last week. Residents at Leslie Grove's rest home in Dunedin have been watching the world walk past their window. And over the past week, a pair of young twins have been coming by to entertain the elderly folk stuck indoors during lockdown.
For the past week, 3-year-old twin brothers Edward and William Cubbott have been entertaining the residents at this Sheen Street rest home.
They absolutely love it. They look forward to it because they come down at afternoon tea time. They look out for them, and they just absolutely love their visits. They love the tales.
Their father says they got the idea when they walked past recently.
We just live at the end of the street. We're walking by, so we're a few people in the rest home looking out the window. So the boys like to dance, and I just got them to dance and blow kisses and wave, and they seem to enjoy it, so we've made it a daily thing.
Davini says the daily performance is just one of several distractions available for those living at the home.
It's huge that they come to the rest home to see us. The residents don't see their families, so it's really, really hard. The staff in the rest home try to do as much as we can, have fun days. They have their happy hour, they have their housey, they have the church service.
And once the lockdown is over, the family have been invited in for some afternoon tea and, at the request of the boys, green chocolate cake. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Time now for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Beginning with the situation, a westerly airflow continues over southern New Zealand tomorrow and through the rest of the week, with weak cold fronts and troughs of low pressure wafting over the region at times, bringing brief outbreaks of cloud and showers, but allowing some fine periods as well. In the southern towns, the Catlins and Balclutha have moderate northeasterlies and mostly cloudy skies, while Lumsden and Gore are due for light westerlies, and you'll also have the cloud. All four centres are heading for 14-degree highs. Heading over to the Central Lakes, Wanaka and Alexandra are heading for light northwesterlies, cloudy skies and 16 degrees. Queenstown is similar, but one cooler on 15, while Te Anau can expect fresh northwesterlies, a few showers and 13 degrees. In the northern towns, Timaru and Oamaru are due for light northeasterlies and some cloud. Timaru aims for 17 and Oamaru 16 degrees. While inland, Twizel and Omarama are both in line for light winds, clear skies and 17 degrees. In Dunedin, it'll be fine and cold tonight with an overnight low of 10 degrees. Expect sunny periods at first tomorrow with light southwesterlies, but a cloud increases during the afternoon. Expect a high of 14 degrees and a low of 9. It'll be mostly cloudy on Thursday with scattered showers at times, a high of 14 and a low of 6 degrees. And heading down to Invercargill, showers clearing tonight with southwesterlies dying out and an overnight low of 9 degrees. Mostly cloudy and cool tomorrow with moderate westerly winds, a high of 13 and a low of 10 degrees. It'll be cloudy on Thursday with showers and moderate southwesterlies. You can plan for a high of 13 and a low of 9. And that's all from the South Today team for this Tuesday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. And stay tuned to Channel 39 for the latest COVID-19 updates from the government. Stay calm during the pandemic, and as the Prime Minister says, be kind. Ka kite a popo. See you tomorrow.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.